Hello, I hope you're having a great day so far. My name is Thelmo and welcome to my brand new YouTube channel. This channel is going to be dedicated to everything music related. We're going to have videos about guitars, basses, amps, pedals, gear reviews, as well as recording, mixing, and mastering tips and tutorials. So if you're into that, I hope you stick around and enjoy all our future videos because I think you're going to get a lot of good stuff out of it. With that said, this is our very first video ever, so I wanted to do something special. Mesa Boogie just released the 90's Dual Rectifier Reissue a couple of days ago. I ordered one as absolutely early as I possibly could, and it's here. So what I wanted to do with it for you guys is actually do a comparison between that brand new amp and the previous iteration of the Dual Rectifier, which is the Multiwatt version. I got both of those amps here. We're going to run them both through the exact same cab and mic setup, and we're going to compare them in various ways. We're going to do the red modern channel, which is what everybody wants to hear. We're going to check out orange a little bit, and then we're going to do a couple boosted options so that you hear a wide gamut of what this amp has to offer. Now, I'm not planning on doing any clean comparisons, but I will say right off the bat that the previous Multiwatt has the better clean. There's nothing wrong with the new clean channel on the new amp. It sounds great, but there's just something chimey and beautiful about the Multiwatt. I think it was the Lone Star cleans that they put in that amp. It just sounds phenomenal. So there's really no comparison there, and honestly, on a dual rectifier, who even cares about the clean? So we're going to give you guys what you want. So let's talk about the signal path. Both amps are going to be connected to my Mesa 412 cab, and we're going to mic them up with these two microphones. This is a Royer 121 and a Crimson Audio modded SM57, the white mod. And I got this fancy little clip that keeps them perfectly in phase, which is awesome. So we're just going to put this right on the speaker on the 412, and we're going to run both of these microphones into my Neve 1073 preamps behind me and directly into Pro Tools, and that's it. There's not going to be any sort of editing, any sort of nothing. I'm not even going to try each take more than once. This isn't about my playing. This is about the tones and the comparison between them. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go. All right, guys, we're going to do the quickest miking job possible to keep this as transparent and simple as possible. So let's do it. Here's our two microphones. I'm going to randomly choose this speaker. So what I'm trying to essentially accomplish is to have the Royer dead center and to have the SM57 essentially where the center meets the cone, like right on that edge. That's usually a pretty good sound. Sometimes you move it a little further or a little more center, depending on if you need it a little brighter or darker, but that's all I'm really going for. So if the sound sucks, I apologize, but let's see. That's it, and I'm about 3/4 of an inch from the grill. So the miking was as simple as that. Whatever that sounds like, that's what you're getting. And now, my beautiful Music Man 7-string is what we're going to use to record. Let's do this. Oh, I guess this is the other thing I need. Cool, let's go. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the comparison between the new 90's Dual Rectifier Reissue and the previous Multiwatt. I did want to leave you with a few thoughts, but I wanted to save them all for now at the end of the video. That way, if you don't want to hear my thoughts and you just wanted to hear the comparisons, and you don't want to hear any biased bullshit from me, you can stop the video now and make your own conclusions. With that said, I do have some thoughts. The first thing I wanted to mention, the one pedal that I did use in all of the examples was I had a Fortin Zool noise gate, which is my absolute favorite noise gate of all time. I love it. I can't recommend it enough. But anyway, I had that in the effects loop of both amps to try to cut down any noise, especially since I really had the amps cranked and this room is not that big, so feedback could have easily been an issue. With that said, and the reason I even bring that up is that even though both of those amps have serial effects loops, the new one was dead quiet in between playing, and I left on purpose a couple seconds at the beginning and end of each riff so that way you could actually hear how much noise they were each making. So the new one had like just pin drop quiet basically as soon as you stopped playing, where the Dual Rectifier Multiwatt, there was still quite a lot of noise leaking even with the Fortin Zool in the effects loop, which I found very surprising. So it's kind of interesting that the loop is way better on the brand new amp as opposed to the one from before. So I always thought they were pretty much the same because they were both series loops, but apparently they're not. The new one is just a much better loop. The amp itself as well is way quieter in general than any Mesa Boogie amp I've ever owned. I've had probably a dozen Boogie amps, and this one, even with the high gain and the volume cranked, when you're not playing, there's very little hiss and noise coming out of the amp, which impressed the hell out of me because I hate noise. That's why I own 3 Fortin Zools, you know what I mean? But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that because I had no idea or conceived notion that the effects loop was going to be that drastically different. So let's talk about what we heard. As I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't play you any clean clips, but just take my word for it, the Multiwatt's clean, because it has that Lone Star clean, is just so much nicer. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the new clean. It's better than any Dual Rectifier's clean I've ever heard before the Multiwatt, but it's still not as good as the Multiwatt. So I just wanted to let you know that. So now let's talk about what we did here. So in all the examples, I found the 90's reissue to be way tighter in the low end and have much more mids. Even with the mid knob pretty low, like say 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, there was still a lot of mids coming out of that amp. And then the Multiwatt, by comparison, was actually the opposite. It felt more scooped every time, like a lot more low end and a lot brighter, but the mids were kind of gone, almost mushy. Like I noticed when I was listening to the examples, the notes aren't as clear on the Multiwatt as they are on the new one. Like the new one just pushes all the actual note forward, if that makes sense. I have no idea if I'm explaining this properly. If I'm not, I apologize. But that's what I heard. And just in general, that was happening across every single example. It's just tighter and more note. Now, when you hear the examples, you might think to yourself, oh, the Multiwatt actually sounds a little bit more pleasing, because I think our ears are naturally built to pick up like, oh, you have a little more low end and a little more brightness and you have that mid scoop. Like that's more pleasing to our ear, right? But if you think about it in a musical context, that amp would need a lot more EQ and a lot more work to actually fit in a mix properly and cut through without being obtrusive or kind of dominating the vocal or anything like that. Where I feel like the new 90's Dual Rectifier, because you're naturally tighter, so you're already making more space for the kick and the bass in a mix, and then you have that mid and that note that's kind of cutting through, and then you don't have the huge bright that'll get in the way of the cymbals and the top of the vocals and all that other stuff. So I actually find, even though you might think the Dual Rectifier Multiwatt sounded more impressive in the video, I actually think in a real world context, in a mix, in a live situation, that the new 90's reissue will actually fit in the situation a lot easier. So that's my thoughts. Do I hate either one? No. I own them both. I love them both. I'm super disappointed in the Multiwatt's noise now that I've heard what a high gain tube amp should sound like without any noise at all. So I don't know if I could ever go back from that personally. I really, like, that feature kind of blew me away. But other than that, I mean, I think they're both great amps. They both look cool. I got them both in the black. Obviously, the new one only comes in the black, which I thought was great. But I've always liked the black dual rectifier. So when I bought the multi-watt, I make sure to get that I got the blacked out version and everything like that. So anyway, I'm going to stop yapping. This video's probably long enough. But please definitely leave your comments below. I'll answer any questions that you have. Just hit me up. I'm happy to help. Well, thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.